Welcome to the PreSnap Podcast presented by LineStar. All of your fantasy football analysis with a sprinkle of sports betting analysis in there as well. Alongside Tyler Weeman, I'm Shannon Somerville, ready to get you set for your Monday Night Football preview. The Commanders at the Eagles in Week 10. We're going to cap off a pretty good Week 10 of NFL action. We've also got your daily fantasy best plays for Week 10 Monday Night Football, some sleepers in there as well. We've got your touchdown calls, your prop bets, and your game picks as well. Tyler, the Commanders coming into this one, 11.5 road underdogs in this one. What do you think about it?
That's a real big number.
That is a high number.
Especially being divisional. Just the two teams know each other so well. It's really hard to blow out a division rival.
And we've seen a lot of crazy games, including what was probably the best game of the season in that Vikings versus Bills game of the season.
Yeah.
What did you think of that game? Because we got to recap that. That was the biggest game that we've seen so far.
It's,
just a wild ending. You got Justin Jefferson just diving over everyone, making just these catches that are just unreal. What do you think?
I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch that game. Like I told you, I was at a kid's first birthday.
Family first, Tyler.
Family first.
Not for me.
I've seen some highlights though, and it was a great game. I am looking forward to kind of fast forwarding through it and watching a little bit of it. So.
It was a phenomenal game. I know you're going to have to see what Kirk Cousins does on the plane. So last week when we did our prop picks of the week, Tyler wasn't here. So I took it upon myself to pick his prop bet, which was Kirk Cousins under. And I said, if Kirk Cousins goes over this, then he has to come into the show next week and wear all the gold chains and stuff. Just recreating the video that's been circulating the internet of Kirk Cousins just getting down with his teammates in the plane. So that's later this week. Stay tuned for that. That'll be
thanks, Shannon.
Later this week. We gotta
appreciate it.
Yep, you know, what is the expression? While the cat is away, the mice will play. Well, in tonight's matchup, we've got the 8-0 undefeated Eagles fly. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles look to go 9-0. They're off to their best start in franchise history. First question is, do you think they lose this season? Because they've got a pretty easy path. They have a
pretty easy path. There's only a couple games that are tough. I could see them going all the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could go all the way through the Super Bowl, but at least
to the playoffs.
Regular season.
They have a very good shot of it. They have one of the easiest schedules going into the rest of the season. The only games, I guess, that would maybe cause for alarm would be Cowboys, although they find a way to lose themselves games about just every week. Yesterday against the Packers was no exception. So the Eagles have a nice path. They're undefeated right now, riding high. And they ride into this one fairly healthy going up against the Commanders. So let's take a look at our injury report. All of our information is coming to you from SixScore.com, the pro football docs over there with years and years of experience working for NFL teams. And they give you the best analysis on the injuries week in and week out in the NFL. It's crucial for your daily fantasy prop betting, everything. Just double check there, SixScore.com. So let's start off looking at the Eagles offense, seeing a lot of green on there. That's because they're mostly fairly healthy. Score of 90.3, which is excellent for this time of the season when you see a lot of teams breaking down, including the Washington defense with a score of 79.4. They've got their linebackers. Linebacker David Mayo is out with a hamstring injury, and another linebacker, Cole Holcomb, is out with a foot injury, so a little thin there. And then there were some questions. Will Chase Young, their defensive end, who's an absolute stud, will he be able to go? He was on the physically unable to perform list, and there was some talk that maybe he could be activated today for this game. However, it seems like he is not coming back anytime soon, which he's one of the few players that makes a huge difference and could swing that point spread very quickly if he's in the game. So he is out. Let's look at the Washington offense now. Also pretty banged up. Score of 75.7. Running back J.D. McKissick is out with a neck injury. Quarterback Taylor Heineke is in, remember, because Wentz is out with that fractured finger. So they've seen a little bit more life in that offense with Heineke back there. Tight end Logan Thomas is healthy, although SixScore.com notes that he has not been 100% to start the season. He continues to recover from 2021 ACL tear. Wide receiver Jahan Dotson is back. He'll suit up after recovering from a hamstring injury. He's not expected to be dynamic, though, according to SixScore.com. And left guard Andrew Norwell is questionable with a groin injury. If he is out, that could leave the Commanders extremely thin on an offensive line, already missing their starting center out due to a season-ending injury in week 2. So the Washington offense and defense looking thin. Meanwhile, the Eagles defense, they got 2 players out in this one. Cornerback Avonte Maddox is out with a hamstring, and cornerback Josh Jobe out with a hamstring injury as well. Still, all in all, 90.7 is their SIC score. Any big takeaways for you, Tyler, just talking about this injury report from a daily fantasy perspective?
There's a couple. With J.D. McKissick being out, it means Antonio Gibson's likely going to get more of the passing down work, which is great. Raises his floor, gives him a higher ceiling. And then Jahan Dotson is another one. He is back. He was really good to start the season.
Right.
Everybody is likely going to be like a little worried about him first game back. I know Pro Football Doc, he is obviously a little worried for him, but that makes it a good kind of ownership play.
Sure.
Where he's probably going to come.
And he comes back and defies.
And we don't know how healthy he is.
Sure.
Pro Football Doc is just going by on basic time, but everybody's a little different.
All right. So check out SixScore.com for all of the injury analysis you need before you play daily fantasy or place those prop bets. Now let's get to our daily fantasy projections for Week 10, Monday Night Football, Eagles versus the Commanders. We'll start off with the undefeated Eagles and quarterback Jalen Hurts, who's having an unbelievable season, second best odds to win the MVP this season. Yeah, he's just been crushing it. More rushing touchdowns than any quarterback, second in passer rating, 6th in QBR and completion percentage. Tyler, what can this guy not do? And I mean, is there any reason he should not be in a daily fantasy lineup? He's been awesome this season.
It appears he can do it all. He's been amazing. This Washington defense should not stop that. He did really well against them back in, week 3 they played him? So we should see more of the same here. Washington ranks 28th, allowing 1.8 passing TDs per game, and they allow 29% more fantasy points to the quarterback when their defense is away. So I like Hurts. He's in a good spot, and you can line him up for a captain,
just
too.
Book him.
Yeah.
It's just, when you think about where Jalen Hurts was even a year ago, and those talk radio stations in Philly, I mean, how measured and just controlled those fans are in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah. Super measured.
They were having an absolute field day, wanted, Jalen Hurts gone.
Yeah.
And
they
then
were
this
definitely
season,
giving the Philly hello to him.
Of course. And so this season, he's
been amazing.
Has been great.
The one thing with him is if you think that he's going to beat Washington with his arm, then you'll probably want, one of the pass catchers at captain or MVP. Whereas if you think he's going to beat them with his legs, then you'd want to throw him in the MVP or captain spot.
Even in that game against Houston Texans, where you could say the Eagles, they didn't look as sharp Thursday night game. Yep. They had a short week, and they still kind of found a way to win, even though they looked a little bit lackluster. And kind of Jalen Hurts just continues to just put the team on his back, say, okay, let's go, guys. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me, his whole attitude of like, yeah, we won the game, but it's not enough. We're undefeated, but still got stuff to improve on. It kind of just reminds me when he transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma. And in one of his first workouts with the team, there was that video that was viral of him just bench pressing like an obscene, 600 pounds or something. But it's like he does these things because he's like, I'm taking control of the team.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the leader. I'm leading us there. And that's kind of the mentality that has percolated to the rest of the team.
One of the things that's really interesting to me with him is this year we haven't had to see it, but last year he was getting all of his fantasy points in the third and the fourth quarters, and willing his team to win or to stay in the game. This season, they're just blowing teams out, and we haven't had to see that fourth quarter Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, hopefully there is a team that will push them this year, and so we will see that.
Yeah.
But
it's scary to think about that prospect, too. let's talk about some of his playmakers, including wide receiver A.J. Brown, who's been a huge beneficiary of Jalen Hurts' phenomenal passing season. He's been a touchdown machine, too. 5 touchdowns in the past 3 games. He's averaging 90 yards per game. And also, a little note here, just the 5th Philadelphia Eagles player to ever have 700 receiving yards and 6+ touchdowns in 8 games. Yeah, he's going up against a Washington Commanders pass defense that is less than to be desired for defense. They rank 21st in pass defense DVOA. What do you think?
And they're 26th in allowing 173 receiving yards to the wide receiver over the last 9 games. This is a great matchup for A.J. Brown. Now, the last time they played, Smith was the one that really went off. But wide receiver 1s have been way better than wide receivers 2s against this Washington defense. So I think A.J. Brown is the one that you would rather have here.
Sure.
I mean, unfortunately, that's most weeks you would say that.
Right.
But also it's how the defense kind of stacks up against Philly today.
Right. I mean, even when they do kind of send everybody on him, he can still just go up there and get it.
And he did just fine in that last matchup. He just didn't have that huge performance that Smith had, where I think he had 2 touchdowns.
Right. Nothing like A.J. Brown's 3 touchdown performances 2 games ago, which was pretty ridiculous. And if you have him on your team when he has one of those performances, you basically win your matchup, your fantasy contest, whatever it is. Although you did allude to Devontae Smith crushing it last game against Washington. He is averaging 55 receiving yards per game. And Washington does rank 30th in pass defense DVOA versus wide receiver 2s. Like you mentioned, he had a great output against them in week 3. Do you still favor Brown over Smith? Or how do you evaluate them, especially on a price standpoint with fantasy?
I would say Brown over Smith. However, with these, single game contests, we need to get different somewhere. There's going to be a little less ownership on Smith. The captain spot for Smith is going to be way less owned than it would for A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's likely double-digit ownership on captain, whereas Smith, 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah.
So there is room for Smith. He is more of a leverage play than A.J. Brown, but I do like A.J. Brown a little bit better. I know Smith had the giant game against him last time, but I just don't think he's going to be able to recreate that.
Either way, those receivers could have themselves both a pretty nice outing tonight. Let's talk about the running game for the Eagles and Miles Sanders, who's averaging 82 rush yards per game this season. Last week, he had over 90 against the Houston Texans, and man, did he look like an angry runner out there. He was it was almost like he wanted to get into contact so he could just stiff arm some people. Love to see that physicality from Miles Sanders. And going up against a Washington Commanders team, if they do have some strength, it is that run defense. How do you evaluate Sanders' prospects for fantasy?
Yeah, it's a bit of a kind of yin and yang, so to speak, just because Washington is good at limiting running backs. They're only allowing 0.4 rushing TDs over the last 9 games. But when Philadelphia is favored and when they get out to the big lead, they pound the ball. They like to run the ball when they have that lead. So even though Washington is good against the running back, there's still probably some room for Sanders here, just because if the Eagles get out to a big lead, they're going to be running the ball, and more opportunities obviously just breeds fantasy points.
Well, there is a person out there in the sports betting world that has a lot at stake for Miles Sanders' rushing total tonight. Tyler, a guy named Landon, has a 5-leg parlay that'll pay $135,000 on a $10 bet if Miles Sanders has over 110 rushing yards tonight. Now, the cash-out offer is $21,762.
I hope he's taking that.
Yes, me too. I said 110. That's very high.
Yeah, either that or I hope he has the liquidity to bet the under on it as well. But,
my goodness.
Yeah, that's...
So there's a lot riding on Miles Sanders. Landon. Let's go. Miles Sanders. Just feed it to Miles Sanders all night. All right. Let's take a look at the Washington Commanders. And at quarterback for them is Taylor Heineke, who has provided a little bit of a spark for them. And he's averaging 210 pass yards in 3 games. He's thrown an interception, though, in each game. It's a little bit hard to evaluate Heineke because we have a little small sample size with him. The Eagles, when they played the Commanders back in week 3, they absolutely demolished Carson Wentz. They sacked him 9 times. There's a part of me that's just like, oh, I feel bad for Heineke. He could die. Yeah,
and you mentioned the O-line issues and the injury part, so there's real concern there for sure.
Yeah. Is he a player in fantasy at all for daily fantasy?
Absolutely. I mean, his price point, he's a quarterback, but he's under A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders in price, so there's definitely room. Like, he can absolutely outscore Miles Sanders or A.J. Brown just because of his position here, but it's going to be hard. Philadelphia ranks 9th, giving up 207 yards for the last 9. They also allow 44% less fantasy points when Philadelphia is favored. So it's going to be tough sledding here for Heineke, but I do like him, and I think there is some room for him in lineups. The great thing about him is that he has been targeting McLaurin more than anybody else.
Speaking of Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, thanks for that transition, Tyler.
Yep.
Yeah, he's averaging 68 receiving yards per game. He's been one of the very few bright spots for this Commanders team this season. However, he's got a tough matchup as well. Philadelphia ranks number 1 in pass defense DVOA versus the opposing team's wide receiver 1. They got some dudes back there that shut it down. What do you make of his outlook?
They do. McLaurin did have one of the best games of his season versus Philadelphia earlier in the season. That was with Wentz throwing to him. Wentz hasn't really been looking, or didn't really look his way too much. I think McLaurin's a nice spot. And any Washington captain or MVP is going to be a little different tonight. Pretty much everybody's going to be using a Philadelphia player as their captain. So it's pretty easy to get a little different by going with one of these guys. McLaurin's one of the ones that I think is in a good spot here. And Philly's allowing 28% more fantasy points to shorter wide receivers. It's a nice little factoid from LineStar.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. It's, just an alert on LineStar. So,
hey, got to find the edge wherever you can.
Wherever.
Especially in the height. Let's talk about the running back situation because this is an interesting, I guess, split of the backfield between Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson seems to be now their downhill guy, and then Gibson's roles kind of, I guess, evolved over the course of the season. And so Robinson has outtouched Gibson 45-40 over the last 3 games. However, we have seen an uptick in his usage as a receiver. Yeah. How do you evaluate the running back position for Commanders, and who could provide you the most value?
So Robinson is technically the starter. They're pretty much splitting workload. I just don't understand what the Commanders are doing here because Gibson's obviously the better, more dynamic running back.
Sure.
And they need to just give him the ball. He is the only one that's going to break big plays.
Right.
And I don't think there's a single thing that Robinson does better than Gibson.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. He makes people mess all over the place when you give him the opportunity, and we've seen that before.
Like, the only thing that Robinson has on him is not fumbling, but, I mean, Gibson's been okay fumbles this year. He hasn't in the past, but I think coaching is still hating on Gibson for it. But anyways, Philadelphia run D was exposed last week. It hasn't been that great this season. It's just teams haven't been able to run against him because Philly gets to such a big lead. Nice thing about Gibson is not only can he run, he can also catch the ball. So he's going to be in the game regardless. And with McKissick out, I would expect a few more catches his way. I thought that would happen last week too, and it just didn't for him. But I would kind of stick with that same thing. And then Philadelphia ranked 23rd, allowing 94.6 yards per game, and they allow 0.9 rushing TDs.
Yeah, if there's any, I guess, Achilles heel of this Eagles team right now that kind of seems to be balanced all over the place. They're number 1 in just about every category, except their rush defense is 27th in rush defense DVOA. So there is, and we did see, like you mentioned, the Texans game. There is a path there.
Totally.
Tamian Pierce had an amazing game in that game. Now let's take a look at some sleeper picks for daily fantasy today. What you got?
Yeah, so for Washington, I like Jahan Dotson, like we talked about. And then Cam Sims or De'Ami Brown. One of them is still going to play a decent amount with Dotson back. And I would say there's some nice leverage there.
As far as captain MVP spots?
Well, with Eagles first, we'll do sleepers. Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Quez Watkins.
Yeah, Quez Watkins is an interesting one.
And the Eagles run the ball a lot, and it's Miles Sanders is the RB1, but if there's a big lead, they do like to tend to start giving Scott or Gainwell carries. So I think all of them are kind of viable. And
some good spots there for today. And who are your MVP captain spots?
So like I said, for anything going Washington is going to be a little bit different. So if I'm going that way, I like McLaurin or Gibson. And then on the Eagles side, obviously Hurts, A.J. Brown, or Smith.
Okay, we got some good plays for you there in Daily Fantasy. Remember, all of the information and stats you need to dominate Daily Fantasy is available at linestarapp.com. Make sure to check that out. Now it's time for our touchdown calls of the game. Yeah! Tyler, Week 10 Monday Night Football. Who do you have for an anytime touchdown?
I'm going to go with the Jalen Hurts rushing TD.
Okay.
I think it's just time for Hurts to get the ball in the end zone himself.
Yeah. He's at minus 110. The odds makers think you're right there. All right.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably going to get in there.
He's going to tell his team, you know, hold on, I got this.
Just like the 600-pound, exactly. You know, what is that exercise called?
Bench
you can
press.
tell I'm
bench press. 600-pound bench. That's insane.
It's insane. All right.
That's possible.
For my touchdown call of the game, I am going with A.J. Brown plus 115. Brown's had 5 touchdowns in the past 3 games. He's also got 11 red zone targets. That's the most of any player in this game over the last 8 weeks. Going up against a Washington pass defense that's 21st in DVOA. Brown is getting a touchdown tonight. Count it. Plus 110, a little plus money on that too. We like that too.
Downtown A.J. Brown.
Downtown A.J. Brown. Now let's get to our prop bets of the game. Tyler, where are you headed in the prop market for tonight?
I'm going with Brian Robinson over 10.5 rushing attempts. He's done this in 3 of 4 since he became the starter. Their whole path to victory is running the ball here. And so I think they need to do it early and often, and Brian Robinson will get his chance.
You had that prop earlier on a Thursday Night Football game, I believe, and he crushed that for you.
Yeah.
All right, I am going with Devontae Smith over 50.5 receiving yards. Smith's averaged 55 receiving yards per game, and he absolutely roasted the Commanders in Week 3. He had a career high 169 receiving yards in that game. So he's going back against the Commanders, who rank 30th in pass DVOA versus wide receiver 2s. Yeah, he's going to have no problem hitting this over. He's basically like, okay, hear me out here. He is Harrison Ford Han Solo to the Luke Skywalker that is A.J. Brown. And personally, I think Han Solo just doesn't get enough credit for his part in defeating the evil empire. What say you, Tyler?
I am good with him being a 1B to A.J. Brown's 1A.
All right. It's also Devontae Smith's birthday today.
Oh, we got a birthday narrative?
Oh, we got a birthday narrative.
Wait, you were holding out on me
I think
this whole time?
He's going to be giving us all the gift of over 50.5 receiving yards tonight. Birthday boy is going to give us the over in this one. Scorpio season. Scorpio season?
No idea what that means.
That's his, how do you live in the state of California if you don't know your horoscope signs, Tyler? We're going to kick you out.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That is his horoscope sign is Scorpio, right?
I'm not even a transplant like you.
I am. I adapt.
Yeah,
I learned.
That's true.
They wouldn't let me live here unless I learned all of the zodiac. Okay, so prop bets, touchdown calls. Now we got your game picks. All right. The Eagles coming into this one minus 11.5. That is a big number. However, this team is undefeated. What do you make of this game, and what's your play here?
I think 11.5 is too much for a divisional game, so I'd take probably the points there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they win the game, but I would take the points.
Yeah.
So
I am, on the other hand, I am taking the Eagles to cover in this one. I just think they're too good of a team right now. They rank 2nd in total defense DVOA, 4th in total offense DVOA, and they also don't make mistakes. It's not like this is a team that makes a ton of mistakes. They rank 1st in turnover differential. Washington's 28th in offensive DVOA, 12th in defensive DVOA. I just think they outmatch them in every single category. Plus, this Commanders team, how awful is it to be a player or a coach on the Commanders team where every day you are going into the locker room with reporters asking you about the owner and all the scandals, and the district attorney of Washington, D.C. is coming after the owner of there's so many distractions, and I just think that
they're just not good.
This game is in Philadelphia. You got to go up against those fans too. Can't forget about them and the impact that they play in this game. I'm going Eagles, laying the points in this one. They'll cover it.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. On the Sunday show, wasn't your underdog the Commanders?
On the Sunday show.
The Sunday.
No.
No, it wasn't? Okay,
I
thought
took
it was
the Jaguars.
Oh, it was the Jags.
And they let me down.
Yeah.
It was I said they would cover. I think it was a spread of 9.5.
Yeah, it was.
And
it was
they
a
lost
higher
by
spread.
10.
The high spread is why I thought it was the Commanders.
Right.
For some
Yes,
reason.
they also had a.
I thought I was catching you there.
You're not going to catch me, Tyler. Try
Too
again
good.
next week.
Too good.
All right, good luck to you guys in all your daily fantasy and your prop betting. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.